Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dirty Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. This week, I'm yet again talking about my solo trip to Italy. It is very funny to me how, even though I spent just 5 days there, I'm milking this trip for content until the cows come home. But it is something I want to share in full detail so that one day I can go back and listen to me telling my story and be able to picture everything that went down. So let's just get straight into it. I promise to wrap it up in this episode. So, in last week's episode, I hinted that I will be finally sharing with you my Coldplay experience. But to get there, we need to go through the Vatican first. So, as I mentioned in one of the parts, I woke up early every morning to go out before the heat really hit, and this day was not an exception. I was really looking forward to going to the Vatican because my entire trip I spent looking at St. Peter's Basilica and just being stunned by its existence. And I was just very excited to actually go up to it and see it and experience it. I was even more excited about the possibility of me walking to a different country. The Vatican was an hour and a half away from my hostel. And while that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, if you know me, you know that is just a normal Tuesday for me. I just wanted to get the bragging rights of saying that I have walked to a different country. Unfortunately, as I shared with you last week, I think, my shoes were terribly uncomfortable. So I decided, because we learn and we grow, and I decided to spare myself the pain. So I decided to take public transportation on my way to the Vatican and figure out stuff on my way back. I know that this took away my opportunity of saying that I have walked to a country. But in the moment, I thought it was going to be the smartest decision overall. Not just health-wise, but also time-wise. So hopefully one day I will get the chance to walk from one country to another and be an annoying person, even more than I already am, but be that annoying person who will not let it go. Until then, I am happy to have taken the bus. Now, I just want to share with you an interaction I had in the Vatican that really, really, really pissed me off. I promise I will get to the good part soon and share my amazement with the beauty of the space. But this was such a triggering and annoying experience that I just need to get it off my chest by sharing it with you. I know that this goes against the agenda of Coldplay that I got to hear just a few hours after that interaction, but if being a hypocrite in this situation is what is going to finally allow me to let it go, then so be it. So, on the bus, I noticed this couple, a girl and a guy. They were roughly my age, and they were tourists as well. And they traveled to the same bus stop as me, and after we got off together, we were headed in the same direction. So I just decided to stick with them. I didn't go up to introduce myself. I didn't know them. But I just walked behind them from a safe distance. And I promise in a non-creepy way. They just seemed like they knew what they were doing. And I definitely did not. I don't know. We had traveled for more than 30 minutes next to each other. And in my head, we had established a connection of some sort. Those who get it, get it. Anyways, so we go to the Vatican Square where lines are already forming to enter the basilica. And the thing is, it is, first of all, a square. So it is out in the open, and the heat and the sun are hitting unnecessarily hard, even though it was 8 a.m. Second of all, it is one of the most touristy spots, so inevitably there are lots and lots of people and long queues. I had to queue for an hour to get to go through security and only then queue to enter the basilica. So that is why I think it is understandable why I would very much dislike it if someone cut me off in that line. I think you already know where I'm going with this. Basically, as I was queuing, literally behind this couple that I mentioned, a woman and her 5-member family went up to that couple to ask them if that is the queue to enter the basilica, after which they cut me off. Normally, I would let it slide, but I was already waiting for a solid half an hour, and I really didn't feel like letting people do whatever they seem fit, simply because they thought so. Also, there were already people behind me, so they weren't cutting off just me. So what I did is I went up to the couple I had queued behind and asked them if I needed to purchase a ticket in advance to get in, or if I could get a ticket at the entrance. If you're interested, by the way, you get a ticket at the entrance. No, actually, wait, you don't need a ticket. Entering the basilica is free. The main part of the basilica to the rooftop, you need a ticket. Anyways, so I asked them this and then I just stayed there. And that woman that had cut me off a minute prior to this started confronting me, saying that I was the one who cut her off. And I very calmly and politely, because I wanted to avoid any confrontation, said that that is actually not true. And I was there when she was asking the couple where the queue is. So she's the one who actually cut me off. And I promise you, I was not yelling. I think that I didn't come off as rude, but I was just not going to let that slide. After which she stood right next to me, pushing me every now and then. And when she saw that I'm remaining unfazed, she started talking very loud so that basically everyone in the entire country of the Vatican could hear her. So, wait, by the way, I just want to quickly mention before I say what she said. That lady was not from the United States. The reason I feel the need to mention this is because she said a lot of ridiculous stuff that I'm going to share with you. And I know that online and maybe also offline, I don't know, it's not in my circle, that narrative, so I don't know if it's an offline thing as well. But online, there is this narrative about US tourists being annoying and loud. And I personally don't know if that's true. But also, it is a generalization, so it is most likely not applicable to everybody. Definitely, there will be people who conform to these characteristics, but I think that labeling everyone and putting them under the same common denominator is simply unfair and honestly just unnecessary. So I do not want to contribute to this narrative, and I do not want to act as a tool to fuel any sort of hatred towards anyone, which is why I will not be mentioning where that lady was from, because I don't want this story to act as a vessel to racism. I just want to make it clear that she wasn't from the States, because I can see a lot of people making that assumption online based on the behavior I will share with you. So let's just prevent any racism. The lady was shitty, but she was shitty not because of her racial or ethnic background. She was shitty simply because she was. So what did she do? So she started talking loud and comparing European culture to her own culture, which is very famous for being a culture of respect and a culture that is very organized and very demure, very modest, very cutesy. So she said, and I quote, Europe is supposed to be the root of civilization, but Europeans are so uncivilized and uncultured. They are rude and they are mean. They cut lines and they never give their seats to older people in the bus. This would never happen where I'm from. And she kept on going on and on and on about how we are the worst species of humanity and we are cocky and entitled. Now, there are a few things I need to mention. First of all, putting all Europeans in the same category is just crazy behavior because that is an entire continent with, 50 countries? Claiming that a European coming from one country is the same as a European coming from another country is pure nonsense. At this point, just claim that everyone in the world is the same and put us all in the same box. Also, I'm not trying to say that Europe is the world. I'm just trying to say that making statements that are such massive generalizations is just something I see no point and no merit in. So, kind of don't. Second of all, if you hate Europeans so much, I really hate to break it to you. I really hate to crush your dream, but in Europe, you will find lots and lots and lots of Europeans. That is like me saying that I'm annoyed at seeing Dutch people in the Netherlands. That makes no sense whatsoever. Of course, you will find predominantly Europeans in Europe. Third of all, babe, I'm also a tourist, the same way you are. Neither of us belong there in the sense you're trying to imply. And just because you came from a more distant destination than me does not mean you're owed special treatment or that I should just let you and your entire family cut me and all the people behind me. We're all there waiting, so suck it up. If you don't want to wait, then just don't go. Or buy a cut the line ticket. I'm sure they have those at the tills or whatever. But don't go expecting special treatment. And lastly, a thing she later did annoyed me even further. So, we're in the Vatican, right? The holy grail of Christianity, of Catholicism, to be more precise. People travel from all around the world to see it. So I really hate to break it to you again, but inevitably, in one of the most touristy spots in all of Italy, which is, I believe, as a country, one of the most highly desirable and consequently highly visited tourist destinations in the world. And if you've not traveled before, maybe you don't know this, but a lot of places offer guided tours. Not just traveling agencies, but also at the site you're visiting, you would most likely be able to find an offer for a guided tour where they explain to you in detail about the place you're visiting. And the Vatican, from what I noticed, had a lot of those groups. And I mean, a lot. And each group was at least 20 to 25 people. And people follow a guide who is holding a flag or something else that signals to them who they should follow. So as we're waiting, more and more groups would go around the square with guys just doing their job by guiding them to, according to a predetermined route. How do you pronounce that word? I don't know. Is it British English, American English? I don't know. Anyways, a predetermined itinerary. See, I already learned that word. Anyways, and that woman was trying to take a picture of the square with the basilica in the background, and the group walked through her frame, and she started yelling at the tour guide, asking him how dare they lead their group through her frame. At this point, my mind was blown away. Are you really yelling at someone for doing their job? Are you expecting the entire square to be evacuated and emptied out so that you can take your picture? That is just crazy. Like, who's the entitled now? What? I'm sorry to break it to you, but you should expect to see tourists at a touristy spot. It is not uncommon. And yelling at people for entering your frame when there are thousands of people in the square right now is just outrageous. At this point, I was so shook to my core that I decided to try and ignore her because I devoted more time and energy to that woman than she honestly deserved. I didn't want to let her plain stupidity overshadow the joy I was feeling of being able to visit the places I was about to visit, especially when I personally found them to be the most beautiful things I have ever laid eyes on. Which brings me to the more positive part, which is when I got into the basilica. When I tell you that my breath was taken away, then my breath was taken away. St. Peter's Basilica is the single most beautiful thing I have ever laid my eyes on. It is extremely impressive, and I don't think that words can do it justice, and pictures don't do it justice either. I hope every one of you gets the chance to see it, even if you're not religious, even if you're not Christian, because St. Peter's Basilica is not a place. It is a spiritual experience. It is an overwhelming feeling in the best way possible. I don't think I've ever been this starstruck, if I can say so. It was just simply breathtaking. The details, the size, the layout, everything was just impeccable. And to think that this was built by actual people, it is a complete and utter mind-bending experience. And I was taking my time going to the altars, looking at all the statues and all the iconic images, trying to soak up the beauty of this place. Unfortunately, Pietà, is that how you pronounce it? Michelangelo's statue of Mary holding the dead body of Jesus. So that statue was closed off for restoration, which was a bit disappointing, but there was so much still left to see that ended up not being that big of a deal in the end. I want to go back one day and see it, of course, and I could just, honestly, I could stay in St. Peter's Basilica all day, every day, and still be mesmerized by it. Then what happened to me, because I am me, is actually kind of hilarious. I swear, sometimes my life feels like it is a sitcom and the writers are having lots of fun with it. So I told you, I'm walking up to statues, to the iconic images, to the altars. I'm trying to soak up the atmosphere. And I'm reading the labels of everything I see because, well, that's what I went there for. And I apparently was right next to a microphone stand that I had not noticed initially. So This one nun comes up to me and she spoke in Italian, so I couldn't understand her, but from her mimics and intonation, I gathered that I needed to move because she had to use the mic stand, which is exactly what I did. I moved. And okay, let's paint the picture. In front of all the altars, there are these benches for prayer. I don't know what they're called. They're not common. I don't think they're actually even a thing in Orthodox Christianity. So I don't know what they're called. But those benches. So it is like every altar is a separate room of 3 walls, and just the 4th one is missing so that you can enter and go as you please. And in that particular church, or is it a cathedral? Yeah, it's most likely a cathedral, basilica. So there the altars were relatively big compared to everything I had seen prior to this one, which is why by the time it took me to go from the mic stand to the space that was already not part of that altar, Mass started at this very altar. And people were coming in, sitting on the benches, ready to pray, and I just panicked because I didn't know what to do and I didn't want to be offensive, so I just sat myself down on a bench as well. Now, before I tell you about how it went, it is important to point out that I'm not religious. I have faith, I have my own understanding of religion and my own understanding of faith, but I personally do not stick to the rituals which religious people adhere to. And also, I am Eastern European, so I am Orthodox, and I was in the Vatican, which is, again, the holy grail of Catholicism. So the priest walks up to the middle of the altar, pulls out a large golden Bible, and starts reading. In Italian, of course. And I'm not understanding a single word. I had never before in my life been to Mass, so all of this was very foreign to me. And I thought it would be extremely disrespectful and would definitely guarantee me a one-way ticket to hell if I just got up and left, especially when people were trying to connect with a higher power, which is why I stayed throughout the entire procedure. The entire Mass. So the priest read lines from the Bible, people were responding, and they would look around at each other. Lots of nuns were there too, and I personally couldn't respond because I didn't speak the language and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know anything. So again, never been to Mass. And I didn't know how much they last, so I thought, oh well, it won't be longer than 10 to 15 minutes. I can wait, it's no problem. After all, if you're to go to a Mass anywhere in the world, especially for your first Mass, then what better place to start than the St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican? Turns out, Mass, or this particular Mass, was 30 minutes. And people were making the sign of the cross with their fingers, but the thing is, I am Orthodox. So our cross signing goes in a different direction than the Catholic one. Our goes up, down, right, left, and the Catholic one is up, down, left, right. So overall, I did not belong there. And I was starting to think, will I get sent to hell for attending Mass in a church that is a different Christian stem, or whatever you call them, than the one I was christened to be? I know our perception of God is the same, but I just was very confused because there is still some distinctions between the two. If there weren't any, then it would be just the one thing. And also, I was worried if they would somehow sense the lack of my religiousness. Overall, that was a very stressful experience, but an interesting nonetheless. I find it captivating to observe religion and how people experience it. At a certain point, people started greeting each other, shaking hands. They made us kneel, and I have never been more confused in my life. People sang, they talked, and at the end, the security came over to each and every one of us to collect money. I really wanted to leave, but I felt so uncomfortable to do so. I was just on a very strict timetable, and that was eating away the time I had to visit the rooftop of the basilica, so the dome. Anyways, I did stay because I felt guilt to leave. And when Mass ended, people started queuing for the priest to give them a piece of bread that he would soak in red wine and that he would personally put into people's mouths. Now, while I was fine with the shaking of hands and the nodding and the kneeling, I was definitely not going to let a stranger feed me, especially after they have touched dozens of people and stuff. I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, and I would never aim to undermine someone's rituals and religion, but I personally am a very, very squeamish person. I would never eat from someone else's fork, let alone drink from their bottle or anything else, especially a stranger. I don't care if it has been purified by faith and love and God. I am not doing it. I am the type of person who, if I have water and someone asks me for a sip, I will give them my bottle, and then when they try to give it back to me, I will just let them know that they can have it. I would rather be dehydrated in the scorching heat than drink from someone else's bottle. I'm sorry. That's just the way I am. That's just the way I have always been. And most likely that's just the way I will be. What I found interesting is that certain people did not want to be fed as well. So they offered their hand and the priest would put the wine bread or like the bread soaked in wine in their palm, but would not let them leave until they ate it all. So interesting. I personally don't share the same values, but I can understand why they're meaningful and I can respect them. Still, I don't want someone touching my food. Also, again, I didn't know what to do, so I just sneaked from the back as I was pretending to go queue for bread. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I just wouldn't have been able to forgive myself had I let someone, a stranger, feed me. But at least now I know what a Catholic Mass ceremony, procedure, what Catholic Mass looks like. It is very interesting. I wonder if different authors suggest different Bible passages to be read. But for me to understand that, I need to attend a Mass procedure in a language I understand. I find religion fascinating, and it was extremely interesting to see how it affected people there and then. But that could also just be the ethnographer in me. So I was running half an hour behind, and I had to speed up my sightseeing, which is why on my way to the basilica's dome, I went using the stairs and not the elevator, because the queue for the elevator was crazy long. So despite the heat, I just ran up the stairs and was trying my best to make up for lost time. Vatican and Rome were stunning from that high up, and I could sit there and watch them the entire day, but I was in a rush. That time again, nobody could take my picture, but at that point I had given up. One man straight up told me he will not be taking my picture, and while I initially found this a bit odd, I would much rather people decline my request than accept it and deliver. So I just positioned my phone where it would stay and press the record video button so that I could take screenshots afterwards. From there, I really wanted to go and visit the Sistine Chapel, and only a few days prior did it occur to me that you can and you actually should book tickets in advance. I thought you could just walk up to it and buy a ticket, which is a possibility, but will take you much, much longer. So I went to the Sistine Chapel and I saw that the line was, and I kid you not, 200 meters, all standing in the sun. So I went up to one of the people in the queue and asked them if that is the entrance queue. And they told me that that was the queue for people with no tickets. So they were lining up to buy a ticket. And then I went up and saw that the entrance line was another 100 meters for people who already had their tickets. And I had no time. I would have definitely loved to experience the Sistine Chapel, but I was not going to put myself through this. For the few hours I would have had to queue, I could visit other places on my list and go get ready for the concert. Because realistically, I only had 2.5 hours before I had to leave for the concert. So I didn't go in, but hopefully one day I will have the chance to. But I did go to the Castle Saint Angelo. I'm sorry, I really don't know how to pronounce it. But I went there and I did a very speedy sightseeing there. What I came to notice from my trip to Rome is that there are a lot of benefits for people who are EU citizens and are under 25. So, for example, instead of my ticket being 10 to 15 euros, it was 2 or 4, which made things far more attainable. And I'm really grateful for this benefit, but that means I have just 3 more years to travel affordably, which is ironic because as a student, you're living on a very tight budget, or at least I am, and I cannot afford to travel a lot. I need to save up for years for a 5-day hostel and 1 day trip. So that means that I will have to be doing more trips in the following 3 years, which my bank account will despise me for. But it is an investment, not just in memories, but think about all the money I will be saving from tickets. So maybe I should start planning my next trip soon so that I can start saving up. Just a note to myself: no hot and humid destinations in the summer. Are they worth visiting? Absolutely. Is going during summer cheaper because it's their off season? Absolutely. But the physical exhaustion that you will experience is something to at least take into consideration. On a somewhat related note, my friend pointed out that the university card that our university issues does not have an expiration date, and nowhere does it state where you started studying. So, as long as I look somewhat similar to my uni card picture, I plan on milking it and making the most out of this. By the way, if a company whose services I will be using with a discount is listening to this, I'm still in university and I'm not lying to you. For me, 2 years from now, I cannot speak though. Okay, enough financial advice from a broke student. Let's go back to the trip and the moment we've all been waiting for. I got back to my hostel, ate some pasta, got ready, and in an environmentally slay way, took public transportation to the venue. We have covered this before. I did not pay for the public transport, which again, I'm really sorry about. The bus was full of people going to the Coldplay concert, and that was a pretty long drive. It took us roughly 45 minutes to get there, and I won't lie to you, I took a nap. But that is definitely the longest public bus transport, like uninterrupted bus transport that I have ever had. Again, public transport, I've been on buses, so yeah. Anyways, so we went to the venue. It was the stadium in Rome. I don't know how many stadiums they have, but it was the Olympic Stadium. And by the time I figured out the entrance I had to use to get to my section, I had already missed half of the set of the first opener. She was an Italian singer. Her name is, I will pronounce it in English. I don't know if it's pronounced differently in Italian, but it was Rose Villain. And I had never heard of her before. I don't know if she's internationally renowned, but she seemed to be a very big deal to the Italian audience. And as you can imagine, it was predominantly Italians in the crowd that day. The second opener was Janelle Monáe, and I was very excited to see her. I have listened to a couple of her songs, but her song, The Way You Make Me Feel, I think is the title, was on repeat last year nonstop, which is ironic that I'm not necessarily sure I know the title, but I listened to that song so much last year. It was actually Human Resources, the spin-off of Big Mouth, that introduced me to her. And even though I'm not necessarily an avid listener, I have so much respect for her art. And when I tell you that this woman was phenomenal, she was a phenomenon. Is that how you say phenomenon? Yeah. So when I say that she was the it girl, please believe me. I have never seen such a performance. She was an amazing singer, but also an amazing dancer. Her backup dancers were phenomenal. And she changed so many outfits. Her set was very colorful, very detailed, and very out there. So I really appreciate all the effort that went into giving that 30-minute performance. Her stage presence was something else. She was extremely energizing, and I think maybe this was the catalyst for me, and I will start listening more to her music. What I found really important was when she and Coldplay as well, I don't know about Rose because she spoke fully in Italian, so I couldn't understand. So she could have not, I don't know. But I found it very important when they spoke up about Palestine. I have so much respect for people with such large public platforms who do this, and especially people who do it on such big stages in person when you don't know how people are going to receive it. For them, it is a big professional risk, whether we like to admit it or not. And it could also potentially pose a personal risk because we know how certain fans can act towards their idols if they disagree with them on a certain matter. So I think it was very important, very respectful, and brave of them to speak up. Thankfully, the crowd received it very well. So after Janelle said, there was a little break before Coldplay came out on stage. And until then, first of all, I was looking at the usher in my section, who was, I kid you not, the most beautiful man I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, that man was stunning. But what is more, until Coldplay came out, apart from me staring at him, I really hope not disrespectfully and not creepily, but until they came out on stage, there was a little segment before the show where the stage had to be charged. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, on the floor of the stadium, there were two sectors with special floor coverage. Those two sectors were kinetic dance floors, which meant that people who bought tickets for those sectors were supposed to dance in that little segment where while they played MC Hammer music, and their movement through those panels is converted into energy which powers the show. I had never seen something like this before, and I think it is so cool. My guess is that it is perhaps really expensive, which is why it is not common at all. But if other bigger artists can apply this to their sets, I think that will be environmentally amazing. Because honestly, I don't even want to know how much energy a set requires. I think overall the mission of Coldplay is to have as green of a show as possible. And I think their mission was to cut down on, even if not eradicate, their CO2 footprint when it comes to their concerts. But I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. So yeah, people danced on those little segments for 5 to 10 minutes, and they charged the stage. Until the band came out, we would do the wave and just hum Viva la Vida. It was just such a beautiful moment of pure love, energy, and it was just what I wish humanity was like at all times. Nothing makes me feel more alive than concerts. There you gather with people you don't know and you share this one moment that you have all been looking forward to. The feelings that flow through your body are just unexplainable. You are part of something bigger, you're part of something beautiful, of something meaningful. You are in this moment that will become hopefully a favorite memory. I really hope everyone gets to experience this at least once in their life. The problem is that once you experience it, it is very easy to get addicted to this feeling because nothing else, I personally think, gives you the same rush that concerts do. And that addiction is a very expensive addiction. But I could also, on the other end, be addicted to drugs, so I guess concerts are a better guilty pleasure to have. Which is why I think what I have to say is so mind blowing to me personally. In the past year, I have been to a fair share of concerts. I've been to smaller, to larger, and to large venues. I have been to concerts with not too much of a set decor going on, and I have been to concerts with an entire ship in the middle of the stage. Shout out SZA. I have experienced good and bad crowds, and I have experienced solo artists and groups. Well, Coldplay were my first group now that I think about it, but anyways, all of this should be taken into consideration when I say that nothing else compares to what I experienced that night during that Coldplay concert. I have never seen such a production before. Every single detail was paid attention to. First, before the concert began, they told us all the organizations that our ticket money goes towards, and then the show finally began. It was magical. Coldplay's stage presence is like nobody else's. And that is to be expected if we are being honest. They have been on stage for more than 25 years, I think. They know how to put on a show. And what a show it was. The visuals were simply mesmerizing. We all got light up bracelets at the entrance and glasses which actually turned lights into hearts, which was so cute. But those light up bracelets would blink in different colors, and some sectors' bracelets light formed a heart shape, which was so cute. During the show, there was a marriage proposal. She said yes. Um, if I ever am to get married and my potential future fiance is hearing this, don't ever propose to me during a concert. Don't ever propose to me in a public setting. Thank you. So there was a girl who held a sign, "My parents are deaf, but I'm not. Can I sing Magic with you?" And they brought her and her friend on stage to sing with them. They couldn't sing, but it was the moment that mattered. It was the humanity that mattered, that was established. I don't know. For their song with BTS, they had visuals on the screen that they interacted with. So it was like a hologram. For their song with Selena Gomez, they had a puppet on stage, and that puppet sang, which again, like they interacted with that puppet. There were fireworks and butterfly-shaped confetti, and they even went on a smaller stage at the other end of the venue so that all of us who were at the end, on that end, could see them up close. There were big planet-shaped balloons which the audience would play with. It was just like, I am not doing it justice. I'm really not doing it justice. If you just look it up, please look up videos from Coldplay concerts and you get to see what I'm talking about. It's a magical experience. I have never experienced something like this before, and I fear I will never experience something like this again. When they were on the smaller stage, the cameras would choose someone from the audience and the band would make a song for them on the spot. Coldplay are amazing performers. And even if you don't like their music, I fear you cannot deny this. In a room full of 63,000 people, they made it feel so intimate, as if they were specifically there for each and every single one of us. I felt part of a community. I felt so much love. I felt so much light. I felt so much peace. And the energy that was flowing through my body is something I will never forget. I feel so beyond grateful that I got to experience this and get the chance to be a part of something so special and so beautiful. I just feel very deeply touched. Sometimes I just sit in my room and reminisce back on this experience, and I'm still blown away by the fact that this is something that I got to personally experience firsthand. I got particularly emotional when they sang Paradise because I relate to this song very much. The fact that I was a little girl dreaming about going abroad and making a better life for myself, and now I'm living those dreams, working hard on achieving them, and seeking my own paradise while also feeling so lost and so helpless. I just cannot put it into words. Hearing that song live was very healing and very reassuring that even if I don't find my paradise in the places I'm currently looking for it, things will be fine. Because maybe the paradise is the person I become along the way. Maybe what I'm seeking for is myself. I don't know. The concert raised and answered so many questions, and I'm so in awe of everyone who worked on this entire production and I'm extremely humbled by the experience I had. That concert was not just music, it was magic. It was a very beautiful universe that I got to inhabit for a few hours, and that I will try to carry with myself always and forever, wherever I go. All of this is already maybe suggesting to you that the post-concert depression was very strong this time. But I was so full of love and magic that it was quickly overshadowed by the gratitude I had. After the concert ended, I had a bit of a difficult time finding my way back to the hostel because the network was overcrowded. I don't know how exactly to explain it, but we have this thing always on New Year's back home. So when midnight strikes, everyone is trying to call everyone to say Happy New Year, and the network just crashes. So that's basically what happened, and I couldn't open Google Maps to save my life. So I just blindly followed a big mass of people because there were no signs whatsoever, and I followed those people not knowing where they're going. And after 40 minutes of walking, I asked a girl to look up the Termini train station, and I took a picture of the map she showed me, and I followed that map on the picture. After 20 more minutes of walking, I could finally connect to the network and figured out my way back to the hostel. The next day, I had to check out by 10, but my flight wasn't until 6 a.m. the next morning. And now let me explain why I didn't book a hostel for that night. So for my 6 a.m. flight, I need to be at the airport at 4:30ish, which meant that I had to take a bus around 2:30ish or 3 a.m. to the airport. And every day I went back to the hostel around midnight, so it genuinely felt like I would just be wasting my money. So what I did is I left my stuff in a storage space in the hostel. I wandered around some more and visited the things I had missed, but on a much lower scale. Like I wasn't out and about going to the other side of the world this time because my feet were killing me. And after that, I went to have dinner. I went back to the hostel. I hung out there for 2 hours and got a bus to the airport. Thankfully, I found a seat there with a charging point because there didn't seem to be too many seats, which is a bit weird to me because it is an airport. So that was interesting. And I ended up waiting at the airport for 7 hours because my flight got delayed, because of course it was. I didn't sleep because I simply couldn't, but I, in the meantime, addressed everyone's postcard, wrote in my journal, and just tried to realize what I had just experienced, to come to terms with everything that had happened to me in the past 5 days. I went to the bathroom and fully did my skincare routine there, so that was a slay. And when I got on the flight, the plane was almost half empty, and I could switch my randomly allocated middle seat to a row just for myself. I took the window seat one, despite my constant advocacy for aisle seats, but it was so that I could just lean on the wall and sleep. And I don't know if I dreamt it, but I think I saw the Colosseum from the plane. And then I dozed off and I woke up just as we were passing the Alps, or at least what I thought were the Alps. And those mountains were simply breathtaking. That view was life-changing. They're still so vividly ingrained in my brain. They were covered in snow and, oh my God, I feel like I say this every 2 seconds, but I had never seen something like this before. And then I went back to the Netherlands. No more mountains in sight. inside. And I had to run to catch my train. And that train ride felt so much longer than usual because I was just exhausted and I was so irritable and I felt so sticky and disgusting and uncomfortable. I just wanted to go home. And eventually I did go home. And when I did that, I went into the shower and scraped my skin off with my loofah. And then I ate lasagna because as if I wasn't in Italy a few hours prior. And then I just passed out. So, guys, actually, this has been my trip to Italy. That's the story. I'm very grateful that I got to experience and see everything that I experienced and saw. I'm thankful to my housemate for telling me where to go and where not to. I'm thankful to all the mean people I met along the way because they pissed me off in the moment, but my interactions with them are a fun story now. I am thankful that I met the 2 lovely girls I did and wandered around with them. I'm so grateful for all the water fountains I saw along the way because they single-handedly saved my life. I am not necessarily grateful to that one girl who snored my ear off, but I'm thankful to her for giving me the knockoff Russian paracetamol. I am thankful that Coldplay, Rose Villain, and Janelle Monáe poured their hearts into their performances. And I'm thankful to myself for being brave enough to go on a solo trip. It was my first, but definitely not my last solo trip. And lastly, I thank you all for listening to this series. I will always and forever cherish the time I had in Italy, and hopefully I will get the chance to visit again someday. Until then, I, and hopefully you, will stay hydrated, will wear sunscreen, and will not support genocide. Ciao!